Hobby Quick Hits. Delivering that breaking hobby news directly to your earlobes. You want to know those hot drops from the card shop? We've got you covered. With your host, John Newman.
All right, time for another episode of Hobby Quick Hits. And this week, over the last, I'd say 6-7 weeks, I've been asked about 4 times from questions pertaining to starting a new podcast or someone entertaining that thought. Two of those people I know. The 2 other ones are, they say, listeners of the show and are thinking of doing their own show. And so I answered some of their questions as best I could. But I got enough, I figured 4 inquiries in that amount of time. Maybe that warrants an episode of kind of just my content rules, right? And rules might be too strong of a word, but sort of guidelines I try to operate my content, from podcasts to social media posts. And a lot of these, if you want to call them mantras or beliefs or rules, whatever you want to call them, a lot of these can be applied even outside the hobby for me and outside the content creator space. Not all of them, but some of them can cross those barriers. So it's not just, for me, content rules or mantras, but just kind of life ones that go into the hobby space, if you will. So it's not gonna be a long episode, but I thought I'd share, about 12 to 15 of those briefly. Like I said, I'll go through the list pretty quickly, just for anyone out there maybe thinking about doing a show or just sort of hobby rules in general. But first, let's hear from our great sponsors, Mojo Brakes, and after that, we'll get into our segments.
MojoBrakeShop.com is the best place to get your sealed wax products and brakes. They not only have the best selection, but the best prices. Whether it's a box or a whole case, they are your guys. They ship worldwide to your doorstep. Their reputation as one of the most trusted in the hobby goes unmatched. They are the 2021 Topps Rip Party Champion Breakers. From sports card to Pokemon cards, their selection can't be beat. They offer daily deals and pre-orders.
Hey guys, John Newman here. Mojo's prices are already great, but to save an additional 10% off anything in their store, use the code QUICKHITS. That's QUICKHITS. Check out the full service store that's open 7 days a week in Santa Clara, California, or the website at mojobreak.com. All right, time for the new releases coming out in the next 2 weeks. That'll be me doing it today. So we got January 4th, 2022, Panini Flawless Baseball. Also on the 4th, 2022, Panini XR Football. Also on the 4th, 2022, Upper Deck AEW Skybox Metal Universe. That will be an interesting product. I'm sure there'll be PMGs in there, wrestling ones. On the 5th, the following day, 21-22, Upper Deck Skybox Metal Universe Hockey. More PMGs, I imagine. On the 6th, 2022, Leaf Draft Football Hobby Blaster Boxes. Continuing on the 6th, 2022, Panini Mosaic Football Choice. On the 6th, Pokemon Padilla Collection. Staying on the 6th, 2023, Sage Hit Low Series Football Hobby. Moving to the 11th, a few more releases, 3 to be exact. 2022, Panini National Treasures Baseball. 2022/23, Panini NBA Hoops Basketball. And 2021/22 Upper Deck Stature Hockey. Going to the 13th, happy birthday, Jordan, my son, but some releases also on that day. 2022 Pro Set Metal Football Hobby and Jumbo. 2023 Pro Set Pure Multi-Sport. Also on the 13th, 2022 Panini Mosaic Football No Huddle. Also 2022 Panini Spectra Football. And so that'll get you caught up for the next 2 weeks releases. Choose your weapon wisely. Happy ripping.
Let's go round the hobbyverse and catch up on this week's hobby news.
Edu tentou fugir, marcado, custodiado, deu a Pelé. Pelé recolhe pelo comando, bateu a Baldock, vai sozinho, entrou pela área, sai mais na Pelé, chuta, gol!
All right, we have a couple of sports / hobby deaths to talk about. You just heard the audio from a Brazil station with Pelé scoring a couple goals. The arguably greatest of all time football / soccer player passed away last week. He's been called the Michael Jordan of soccer, but I heard someone else said Michael Jordan's the Pelé of basketball. But one of the icons, if not the icon of the sport of soccer, just after the World Cup completed, sadly passed away. Keep in mind, he's arguably the greatest in his profession, and 70% of what he accomplished was not filmed or recorded. It was before social media like we know it today, and without the big money contracts from networks and the likes of those. And so he did that without the coverage that today's sport gets, but still regarded as a GOAT. And so rest in peace, Pelé.
Now, we've got a deal right now. We've got a set deal that we're going to do for just a few people that is one of those that absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. None.
We do a lot of those.
Makes no sense whatsoever. Now, here's what we're going to do. Are you ready, gang?
One of those,
It's going to be a factory set or wax box special like you wouldn't believe. SF4393.
Well, if you were a hobbyist in the 90s, that voice sounds very familiar probably to you. He was the late night shop at home hobby king, Don West. Don West has passed away at the young age of 59, was battling a brain tumor. Unfortunately lost that battle. And fond memories for me, I was in my teens at that point, early 20s. A lot of times that age, right? A lot of stuff on your mind. You can't sleep. You stay up, you channel surf. And being in the hobby already in those days, right? You get to that channel and you stop surfing and you watch these deals that he had on. I will say this: I never made a purchase. Being in the hobby already, I was able to obtain most of that stuff if I wanted it at a lower price point. But definitely watched. He was entertaining. He was kind of the Crazy Eddie of sports cards. Those in the New York area might remember Crazy Eddie from Crazy Eddie's Electronics, and definitely a great spokesman and advocate for the hobbyists. His style was like a carnival barker, but he definitely garnered your attention. Later in life, he became the voice of TNA Wrestling. I didn't know anything from that. My knowledge of him is in the sports card hobby field. And, just one of those early, mouthpieces, but in a good way, and really promoted the hobby through, Home Shopping Network or those online sales. But I could tell you, I always got a kick when he'd be setting up the display or near the display, and he'd knock it over. I remember watching one night, and it was like some random rookie cards, and there was an '89 Upper Deck Griffey on there, and he knocked over the whole display, and it was a funny moment, and stuff like that you'll always remember. So rest in peace, Don West. I know we used to do those obits kind of on the norm on the show, and then we went away from it, but kind of brought it back this week just with the names that we lost before the new year in Pele and Don West, two significant sports and or hobby folks. So that's why I highlighted them this segment. All suing Beckett Grading Services for encapsulating a trimmed card and letting Alt, sell it unknowingly. Very early stages of that lawsuit, so stay tuned. We'll see what happens there. Fanatics has a new CFO of their collectibles division. His name is Greg Abovsky. He comes by way of StubHub, where he was the CFO there. So he's going into the hobby line from StubHub to Fanatics. Heritage announced, very transparent, that in 2022 they made $1.4 billion. Yes, you heard that right, not million. $1.4 billion in auction sales for the 2022 year, highlighted by the SGC 9.5 Mickey Mantle that went for $12.6 million. All right, let's talk about my approach to content creation. Like I said in the opening, right, I've had 4 people in the last 6-7 weeks contact me about launching their own podcast. 2 people I know. One of them's not even a hobby podcast, just a different genre, but wanted to kind of pick my brain on podcasting and my approach. So I thought I'd do this episode. Again, these are just what works for me. Some of these I apply not just like to podcasting, but even life in general. Not all of them. Some are, content creation specific. Just my approach. Again, disclaimer, these are what works for me. You may want to go in a different direction or may disagree, about them. The other reason I'm doing these is I also get asked by not people launching a new podcast, but people who say, hey, John, you've done the show, content creation 4 years. What's the secret to lasting that long? That's a long time. You see people start shows and then, 5-10 episodes in, that's the end. Even other podcasts that have lasted longer that come to an end. What's your secret? I get asked sometimes, if you will. And there really are no secrets. So hence this show. So let's, without further ado, let's get into some of these, okay? Make content for your listeners, meaning, even though, you're trying to entertain yourself a little bit, or maybe you're a little bit more passionate talking about something you really, really love. Remember, it's those folks out there, you guys, that will make or break the show if it comes down to, especially with longevity. So I always say make content, for the listeners. Make content that's interesting. Have guests on that talk about stuff that other people are interested in and that sort of thing as well. Put yourself out there, right? Be genuine, right? I've had, 2 deaths during the run of the show. My stepbrothers, Steve, and my dog, Mocha. And, I shared some of that stuff on the broadcast and on social media. I shared when they were alive, and I felt like I could do that still, in their passing. And, it was tough times, right? I talked about losing a job. I talked about launching a new career, right? Putting yourself out there and willing to share not only just the good things, but the bad things too, really, I think gets the point across that you're, number one, like anyone else, right? You suffer loss and tragedies and downfalls and tough days like we all do. And people, while maybe not be rooting against you or don't want to see that happen to you, when it does, it's kind of an indicator to them like, hey, this happens to all of us. I'm not alone, and no one should feel like that. So I share those personal stories, and I have no problem, doing that. I've cried on the air. I've cried on video, not often, but it's happened. And obviously you can't be more personal really than that. Be supportive of other content creators, especially within your own space. And, I will retweet, I will post, this episode was great, or this new show's great, or, even better yet, bring someone on from a host from the other, another show that I think's good, or I appreciate what the host brings to it. I've had other content creators on this show, and I will continue to do so. I know some don't do that, and that to each their own, but I know what it takes to put these shows together. I know the work and grind, and it is fun, but it's also, as I always say, a labor of love too. And so I'm going to honor that commitment from other shows by having those guests on this show sometimes when they, willing to come on and talk about what they do. Again, don't be afraid to bring outside stuff to your content. And again, this one doesn't have to be just to podcasts or video, right? Could be social media, right? Let people in a little bit. That's how you build those personal relationships. That's how people know, you're not in front of a mic 24 hours a day. I'm not even close to that. And so I don't have a problem, again, bringing some of that outside stuff to the show. Some of my work as a teacher, fantasy leagues, just goofy stuff like that. This is a big one to me. Answer every correspondence. Any message I get through the website, emails, PMs, DMs, I answer it. I respond. May not be instantaneous, but I respond. It's one of my pet peeves is when you contact someone, you reach out to someone, and you get nothing, or you get blown off, right? I don't do that to anyone. And, another rule, and I'll put this together with that one, it's okay to say I don't know, right? I get asked questions. Sometimes I don't know the answer to it. I'm not going to bullshit you or baloney throw you. I'll say I don't know, or I'll say I think it's this, or I think it's that, but, we need to find out for sure. And there's nothing wrong to do that. I think people appreciate and find, the answer in that I don't know for sure refreshing. I know I do. I rather someone say, hey, John, I don't know, or I think it's this, but let's find out, or let me find out, right? I appreciate that more than someone say, making the story up or making an answer up so that they don't say, I don't know, and then it comes out to be, inaccurate, right? Speaking of inaccurate, right? Balance, I wrote down balanced reporting, right? Sometimes we have to talk about some negative stories on these shows, right? On Hobby Hotline, on my own show. It comes with the territories, right? But I also want to talk about great stories. I want to highlight great people, great companies, great acts of kindness, things that people are doing. And for every bad story, as I often say, right, there's 10 or 20 good ones. And so I will talk about both, but from a personal standpoint, I enjoy talking about the positive stuff more. Try to get better each episode, right? That's what I try to do. Is it always possible? No, I think I proved that that's not always the case, but don't get complacent. Be open to feedback. Try new things. You can always, if it doesn't work or you don't like it or someone else don't like it, you can always go in a different direction. Here on this show, we've had different segments that don't exist no more. We've added new ones that are still here, and don't be afraid to change when change is needed. Competition, right? Man, there's no shortages of podcasts in the hobby space, especially now. I just told you I've even had 4 inquiries about new shows, right? One not hobby, but at least new shows are popping up almost every day. But who is your real competition? It's you. You can't compete against 1,000 other shows. It's impossible. So you got to compete against yourself. Just try to get better each day, each week, each episode, each year, however long you do it, right? Just kind of improve as you do it. Learn from your mistakes. You're going to make them. So why not use them to your advantage? And when they happen, get better and be better, right? Giving proper journalistic credit. I always try to, if I use content or quote somebody, obviously, always important to give credit to who broke the story first or whose comment you're quoting, right? Or where you heard that. They put in their work. They should be given the proper credit. That's something that's important to me. Give extra value or give value back, right? Go give, someone asks you for something, do more, if you can do more than what's at. give extra value. Every sale I make, I generally include a few extra cards in there, to maybe hopefully brighten someone's day, put a smile on someone's face. Maybe they don't want the extra cards. They don't like the extra cards. They can give them away in turn and pay it forward, right? Doesn't hurt me. It's a nice gesture, and maybe it brightens someone's day. I try to do that, and not just a hobby, but across the board in general in life, right? Equal time. I believe in equal time. If I, on this show or any show, and I say, hey, allegedly this person or this company did this, it's being reported, and it's something bad or illegal or not good, and if they hear it and they believe it's not true, why shouldn't they have the opportunity to come on with me and say, John, you're wrong here when you allege that we're doing this or I'm doing this. And I believe that's fair to have, equal time. If I'm listening to someone else's content and they said, John does this and John does that, and it's not true and it paints me in a negative light, why shouldn't I have the ability to come on said show and refute what's not true, right? I think that's only fair. So if I want it to be fair to me, I have to also keep it fair to everybody else as well. Sponsorships. I debated talking about this topic on this episode, but I'm going to do it. Not every show has them. Frankly, most don't. We have them on our shows, and sometimes I think I get silently criticized for it. But every sponsor we have is someone I either use the product, like their product. I don't shill for sponsors. I've turned sponsorships down because I don't use the product or I don't like the product, and I can't recommend it to people out there listening. So keep that in mind when you hear a 30-second commercial. They're a company or a product I either use or believe in, or both. And most of the times it's both. So, I know, everyone says, well, you're shilling or you're not being truthful or accurate with your reporting because maybe you're protecting a sponsor, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. And I tell all my sponsors, sponsoring the show doesn't mean like if something bad was to happen in the hobby and you did something, I have to talk about it and report it. I go on this Sports Card Nation and I'll talk about things I don't like maybe the SGC did. Most of the time I do support everything they do, but sometimes, when they went up to $100 a card submission fee, I said, man, that's just a huge mistake. Here they are, a sponsor of the show. So I don't shill or sell out the sponsors that I do have or work with. Even sponsors that maybe not be sponsors anymore will tell you, I'm very fair, and I will talk about, something even if it's not, paints them as a Picasso, right? That'll always be the case. All right, I saved the best two for last, and I'm going to put them together. And I say the last two, these are always the first two I tell anyone in direct or private conversations when I get asked about content creation, right? I kind of touched on them already, right? Be yourself, but most importantly, have fun. If you're doing any kind of content creation, audio, video, just, posting, visuals, if you're not having fun in the process of doing it, or more fun than not having fun, then you're doing something wrong. Right? This should be fun. While there's some money earned from it, it's not my job. I'm a teaching assistant. So this stuff's got to be fun, right? This has got to be the outlet to have fun and have some enjoyment outside the daily doldrums, which for me have even gotten better with my new career change too. So I'm a happy guy. I'm having fun. That's the angle and approach I try to take. I think it makes work less work when you're having fun doing it. So that's a good note to close on. And, let me know. You agree? You disagree? You got some additional ones you want to add to the list? Go ahead and give me some of that feedback. So with that being said, we're going to wrap it up and a few exit notes, and we'll see you next Monday with another episode of Card Mentions, and we'll see you Friday with another episode of Sports Card Nation.
Check out our website at www.sportscardnationpodcast.com for the new release schedule, our blog, all show episodes, and so much more.
All right, that's going to do it for episode Ep.143. Just some closing thoughts. These are just some of my mantras and rules, folks. They just work for me. I'm not trying to be preachy. I just get asked some of these questions and thought I'd, dedicate an episode towards it. If may work for you, may not. It just works for me, and I thought I'd share them. So hope you enjoyed the episode. We have another Sports Card Nation coming to you Friday, where my guest is scheduled to be Les Wolf, memorabilia and autograph expert. We'll be back here next Monday with the Cardman Show with myself and Danny Black. That'll be live on Friday, but the audio will be released on Monday in place of Hobby Quick Hits. So at this time, I want to wish everybody out there a happy, healthy, and safe 2023. Enjoy the hobby, and we'll see you next week.